Okay. Oh, excuse me. Lebanon, where's my thing? Okay. For a change, got headphones on today because I am trying to do a shared live stream. And I'm going to see if that works. Now, I'm sending a link to my intended co-host, one Kevin Logan. And we'll see if that works, because I've never tried to do this before. Yes. Hopefully that's still working. Okay. So, yeah. So, popping out the chat. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Hi, Natalie and Bjori and Musical Aviator. So, we got that. We got that. And hey, Aussie Brick Chick. So, how's the audio, by the way? Because look. Who's that? Who's that? It's Mr. Kevin Logan, I think. I can't hear him yet. I don't know if you can see him. It's a still photo.
Right, 1 second.
Okay, I can hear you.
Hello there.
Hello. So, well, are you going audio only for this, or?
No, I've got to change my settings because the last time I did audio only, and so you changed the bandwidth down so that break or whatever. So it should. There we go.
Okay, rock and roll. Look at this. It's actually working. Loving it.
Yes. Oh, we're live already, yes.
Yes, no, we are. I just threw you in the deep end.
No, that's absolutely fine. I think it's only appropriate that on the 27th anniversary of the creation of the internet, the pinnacle of the internet has now been reached.
It is. I mean, it's actually the anniversary, is it?
Yeah, 27 years ago today, the first ever web page was created.
By Tim Berners-Lee?
Indeed.
Right. Old internet nerds. Woo! Knowing trivia like that. Oh, dear. Okay, so, well, this ought to be fun. Like, I've had people with me before. Now, they're interesting. There doesn't seem to be any delay between me and you, Kevin. Not that I can see anyway.
Yeah. Yeah,
so that's good.
They're generally, but there's generally a delay between you and the chat.
In the past, it's been about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So, okay, chat audience, we will just test that. When I say mark, I'm going to count, and then you guys comment mark as well, and then I'll know how long it takes you to hear what I say. Okay, are we ready? Set, go, mark. 3. I should 4, 5. I should say that out loud. Why am I being quiet? That would be dead air. So,
oh, hang on.
Now I can hear me through yours. Okay, that's actually slightly longer than normal, a bit over 10 seconds. That's okay. So, Kevin, tell us, what are you up to?
Well, it's 9 in the morning, so I'm dead basically. But yeah. Hello there to the angry Australian audience. Angry Australian, I'm being ever so formal. Angry Aussie audience.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you mind? Can I call you Aussie, or do you prefer me to?
It's really funny because all my YouTube friends here, like socially in person, call me Angry. They don't use my name. They all know my name, and we'll just be out there with boy Angry, and people go, "Why are they calling you that?" And I go, "Oh, long story. You know, it's just like." But hey, Joe, how's it going? So yes, I decided to call our live stream social justice workers Tsunami, because that's what we both get accused of being.
Well, yeah, well, the new one, of course, is cultural Marxist. That one's always fun. They do find these odd phrases to call people.
Yes, I read some. I mean, it's new on the internet to have that as abuse. I think the term was used as a sort of creeping Marxism threat a few decades ago. The idea that communism didn't win in a political sense, as in, you know, the Soviet Union collapsed, etc. And so they're going, ooh, all the old commies, now they're just trying to change people's brains. And they're getting into the institutions and trying to change the way people think. And they want to change the culture rather than the politics. And they started calling that cultural Marxism, which is apparently just wanting to be nice to people.
Apparently so, yeah, and it's especially they like attacking academia, because apparently that's infested with such people, and you think that's just your typical attack on intellectualism, you bastards, you know.
No, it's real. They're scared that universities are hotbeds of communism. It's as I saw someone commenting the other day on Twitter, it's like, oh, you're upset that kids who go to university tend to become more small L liberal. It's almost as if being exposed to generations of thinking and different influences broadens your outlook on life. So,
yes, indeed,
yeah.
well, indeed, yeah. Education tends to have that effect on people. Although I liked the fact that you said small L liberal, because I love the fact that in Australia, Liberal is the Conservative Party, and you think, well, it's the wrong way round. It's always the wrong way round. What?
Yeah, well, it actually, it goes back to the origin of the party, which is not that long ago. It was only mid-20th century. And one of the founders, Robert Menzies, talked about classical liberalism, and he actually rejected the term conservative, particularly on social issues, but he was very anti-communist, and he talked about classical liberalism promoting individuality and whatnot. I mean, the modern Liberal Party lost that ideal a while ago. I mean, there's you know, the classical small L liberals within the Liberal Party, but the power structure has been dominated by moral conservatives in the last couple of decades.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. Again, from the outside, because one of the reasons I wanted to have this hangout, obviously the story coming out of Australia is the gay marriage thing, and you think the only reason they had the non-binding vote in the first place was because the Liberal Party seemed split on whether or not to deny basic human rights to Australians, which you think that's not liberal or progressive in any way. That's disgusting. What the fuck is going on there?
Oh, well, that was when Tony Abbott was the leader. He's like a Catholic arch-conservative morally, which is hilarious because his sister's a lesbian, but he's very anti-gay.
And he was born in Britain, so you're welcome.
Yeah, two Bob Pom. He's a two Bob Pom. So he did it as a stalling tactic. He never intended to go ahead. It's just he was fighting the tide of history, basically. More people wanted to have just a parliamentary vote, just like, okay, Parliament, you know what the public have said because there's been multiple surveys on it. Just have a vote on if we should change the law. And Abbott refused that. And when he first came up with the idea of a public vote, he was never going to do it. It was just a stalling tactic. He's going like, oh, I'm not going to vote in Parliament, but I will do this public, but that'll take a while to set up. And it was just a stalling tactic. And if he hadn't lost power, he still wouldn't have gone ahead, even with a vote in favour of marriage equality, he wouldn't have gone ahead with it. But he got offed by Malcolm Turnbull, who did do the plebiscite, which was still weak, but now it's finally over. It's finally over. It's been so ridiculous.
Yeah, and congratulations to at least, what, nearly 62% of Australia.
Yeah, the average was about 62%. And, you know, unsurprisingly, metro areas were like 80%. But even there were very few places that had a majority no vote. You know, little conservative slivers on the outer west of Sydney and some rural areas. But as it's been pointed out, like, you have to really emphasise to people, 60-40 vote is a crushing win. If, like, because when the Bureau of Statistics broke it up by electoral seats and they said, oh, you know, this many, if that same vote was for a federal election and there was the yes party and the no party, the yes party would have had something like 120 seats and the no party would have had about 15 seats. Like, it's a crushing win.
Yeah, and well, exactly. And I've been watching a lot of the social media reaction to it, and there's been obviously, to an extent, some pessimism, because obviously, from the perspective of LGBT Australians, you think, well, that's still what, just over a third of Australians who are, and there is no other way to put it, bigots.
Oh yeah.
There's no good arguments against gay marriage at all. I've heard them all the world over. Every time this kind of legislation's ever been proposed, same arguments get rolled out, and it's all shit. The only reason you have is because you're a fucking homophobe. But the thing to remember for those LGBT Australians is the groundswell of change in their direction is huge, because, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers for Australia, but certainly here in Britain, it wasn't up until about 25 years ago that it crushed the 50% support threshold in the population. And so to see it now, where we've had gay marriage for quite a while here, and it's the support for it is overwhelming.
Oh yeah,
you know, 3/4 to a quarter type numbers, which is a huge change in a small span of time, really.
I did see one statistic, because the laws making homosexuality illegal only started being repealed in Australia in the 1980s, and it was state by state. Each state had their laws, and Tasmania only officially repealed the law, I don't know, about 20 years ago.
Wow. Fucking hell.
I know, right? It's pretty fucking scary. And I know an area like that, because before they repealed the laws, there were various surveys done, and there was over 50% of the population in some of the surveys saying homosexuality should be illegal and punishable by jail. And one of the areas that in this survey only 20 years ago had like 70% of respondents say homosexuality should be illegal, they voted 55% in favour of marriage equality. So yeah, the change is amazing.
Those timescales were pretty scary, because I mean, we changed our laws back in the 60s to decriminalise sodomy, as they called it, but basically to make homosexuality no longer punishable. Because we just recently had the 50-year anniversary of it, and that was relatively late for the Western world. So Australia, the idea back in the 80s, fucking hell, that's
it only started in the 80s. Yeah, no, and I mean, God, you want the mentality? Bloody look up Sydney gay murders in the 1990s. There was a string of murders that the cops called suicides, because there was a pickup joint that was near a cliff going into the ocean, and a strange number of homosexual men were found at the bottom of the cliff, and the cops just kept saying suicides. But it was proven, there were like 2 cops who were willing to investigate it, and they proved that a significant number of them, now these cops basically thought nearly all of them were murders, but they proved a significant number of them were murders. And it was basically teenagers luring gay guys, because it was a beat, and they'd, you know, leave a message at the public toilets, meet me over here, and then they'd beat them up and throw them off a fucking cliff. They were serial killers, basically, who were never caught. And the cops just didn't give a shit.
Oh my god, that's fucking awful. That is appalling. Jesus
I know,
Christ.
but yet you have to stare this ugly shit in the face and not pretend that it didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I say, that's the positive to take out of all of this is that sea change of opinion that I talked about from Britain is even more vast in Australia, clearly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I actually still remember a conversation at school in the 80s when homosexuality was still illegal everywhere, I think. We had a Danish exchange student, and they'd, of course, decriminalised homosexuality for God knows how many years. And she said, what the fuck? I just heard that homosexuality is illegal here. That's the worst law I ever heard. And I remember guys going, oh, I think it's the best law we've got.
Yeah, that kind of I dare say faux masculinity, really.
Yeah.
Is just awful. Oh god. And I mean, as a sports fan, I put up with shit like that all the time. These fucking, I think in America they call them jocks or whatever. They're just, oh god, they're driving up the fucking wall. But
I just noticed we're doing a bit of fat pride in the comments. Woo!
Yes.
Fat bastards unite.
Absolutely, yeah. This is some hardcore fat on fat action you're getting here today.
Oh my god. I can just see some of the haters using that, referring to us doing a live stream as fat action.
Well, yeah, that's take that clip out of context all you wish. Yeah. One story I did see, which was quite funny, on the gay marriage thing, was this. Did you hear about this absurd couple who planned vowed to divorce?
Yeah.
Right, they're fantastic. This pair of absolute arseholes. Nick and Sarah Jensen of Canberra, who'd been married for 10 years, and said that this was that they would divorce because same-sex marriage threatens the sacred nature of marriage as a union, which surely, if anything threatens that sacredness, it would be trivializing it based on the political whims of the populace. What if your marriage is worth that little that you could divorce over someone else's opinion? No, I mean that you're an absurd human being. So but the internet comes through as it always does, because Facebook, the Facebook group opened called "Celebrate Nick and Sarah Jensen's Divorce," and got about 40,000 likes already, which is quite nice.
Oh, I mean, seriously, saying something that stupid publicly and expecting not to cop shit as a result, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't know why you'd even fucking bother, frankly. Like, because apparently he's involved in some Christian organization which tries to train up Christian political leaders of the future and stuff. And I just, you're fighting. You're fighting a losing battle trying to keep this traditional bullshit alive. But also, Christianity, surely, if it's to survive in the modern Western world, has to move with the times to an extent, doesn't it? I don't see why this is the hill they've chosen to die on. It seems so peculiar.
Just people are just uptight, and they've always thought a particular way, and they're not capable of changing.
Yeah, basically.
It's funny. Oh, the Nick and Sarah, yeah, they are legit. Few people, but they actually first said it a couple of years ago when the push for marriage equality started to pick up steam a couple of years ago. They originally said it a couple of years ago, and of course the story resurfaced in the last day or so because the vote came in, and
yes,
they were like,
they've got
such idiots.
Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't realise that under Australian law you have to be separated for 12 months or something before you can have.
I'm not completely sure how the divorce laws work now. That used to be the proviso. You had to be separated for 12 months before the divorce was final, and you had to actually lodge some sort of papers that said, well, you know, we're separating with a view to divorce. Hi, Wrestling Days. Hey, oh, it's Pat. How you doing, buddy? No wonder you said hi twice. Didn't see you the first time. Yeah, oh, look, Tara, I agree with you completely. Hey, Oh, I just realised, Kevin, you won't be seeing the chat because it's on YouTube.
No, I've got the chat. Yeah, no, I've got
you
the
do
chat
have
off.
the chat up.
I've
Good.
got yeah,
Good.
when you
So you
heard
can see it.
yourself back in as an echo about a couple of minutes ago, that was because I'd left the volume on the YouTube page. Because I mean, I've only been doing this for like 2.5 years now, so I've clearly totally inexperienced and rookie mistake fucking time. Yeah. So yeah, I can see the chat and I can see some awesome people.
Yeah.
Shout out to Natalie. Natalie Kirk is the shit. Yeah. No, I'm not expecting anyone to have heard of any of my friends here, but they're awesome. Acadian Times is in as well. So yeah, there are a few good people.
Nice. Yeah, and Tara, you raise a good point. The war on the trans community is it's like the war in the gay community about 50 years ago, basically. Like to the start of people denying you exist, basically, and that's the next big fight, really.
Yeah, and it's a shame to an extent because I mean Australia is seen generally as a pretty chill place outside of the immigrant thing. I mean we can go into that if you want.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's outside. It's seen as generally a pretty chill place, but clearly, unfortunately, I don't want to be rude, but it's behind the fucking curve. Because the trans thing has been, the trans thing has been an issue after gay marriage was dealt with, and then the trans thing is the next thing, generally in the Western world. And Australia, if you're just getting round to bashing the trans folk, the one piece of advice or the one piece of solace you can take from that in the trans community is, however rough that's going to be, and I'm sure it fucking is. I'm not going to take that away from you at all. Good things are around the corner because the forces of darkness, as it were. I don't want to be too fucking religious about it because I'm not a religious man, but the forces of darkness can only hold back progress for so long, and eventually you'll find a place of acceptance within society.
Yeah. Although, as we're seeing, it's not a straight line. There's peaks and troughs, and you do occasionally get these backlashes, like the idiocy in the US at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's. I don't know necessarily how religious a society Australia is. It does seem the more religious a society, the more of those backlashes and the deeper the troughs, so to speak. Yeah. Because of religion holding things back, unfortunately. Or well, hardcore religion rather than just your average religious person doesn't tend to give a shit. But it's the fucking Pat Robertsons and so on of the world.
Yeah. I mean, the hardcore religious here are a tiny splinter group. Like the stuff American politicians have to do to get accepted. If an Australian politician did it, the vast majority of the population would be, geez, what the fuck is your problem? What is that shit?
Yeah, that's always shocked me when George Bush used to say, "Oh, I talked to God and he told me to do X, Y, and Z." You're unelectable in Britain. What are you talking about? You're talking to God.
Yeah, if a politician flat out said, "I talked to God and God specifically told me to do this," the whole electorate would be like, "What the fuck?"
Well, I'd also say, well, is God paying taxes? Because if not, you're talking to and taking advice from the wrong people. He's not part of the electorate, so let's priorities.
Tara pointing out the American alliance defending freedom, getting interested because they had Tony Abbott. Tony Abbott went across to America just to talk to this bunch of ultra-right bigots, and it's just like, dude, you are so fucking desperate for relevance that you just spend time with the most contemptible people. It's terrible.
Well, didn't I hear he was possibly making some sort of comeback? But
he thinks he is. He thinks he is. It's a ridiculous delusion.
Oh right. Well, there you go. Well, I'm glad about that at least.
Oh yeah, no, it's a joke in his own party. Even his former supporters are like, dude, shut the fuck up. Seriously. Yep, I think your audio dropped out for a second. Yeah, you're back.
I muted for a second for some fucking reason. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's. I'm glad to hear about that because Abbott was from the outside. I'm not a political expert in Australia, but the man's a prick. I mean, there's no denying that.
What he might do, because you can get into the Senate here with comparatively few votes, he might form a coalition minor party with some other ultra extremist, by Australian standards, right wingers, and get in the Senate, because then he's got a cushy job in the Senate and still gets paid and still gets a public platform to mouth off with his bullshit.
Yeah, well, talking about right-wing Australians, a man I know you're very fond of, Mr. Corey Bernardo. Yeah, I saw that he'd. I like to intermittently check on his Twitter because some of it's gold, just absolute fucking gold. And they've got the Australian Conservative Party, or whatever they're fucking called, a petition saying already they've set up this fucking petition saying whatever gay marriage legislation comes through, because I think they've now just accepted it's going to happen at some point. Yeah. That it needs to protect their freedoms. What are you talking about? What, like, this is the thing that's always surprised me, or always annoyed me, I should say, about these debates is how does it impact upon you in any fucking way? It doesn't. The only people it impacts is gay people, surely.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just obsessed. They're like, they've got to control other people. That's their thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredibly frustrating. You think it seems so odd that you'd even have a vote like this anyway, because surely if the government's there to do anything, it's to protect sort of minorities from the majority. Because if 51% decided that they wanted to take the wrath out on some random minority, I don't know, gypsies, for instance, would that then be okay because it has a democratic mandate? No.
Well, here's the thing, see, because when they started saying we demand our rights, by which they mean their right to discriminate, that they have in their head this right. And I just went, I joked on Twitter and said, well, if you're going to be able to refuse service to gays because of your beliefs, surely you have to be able to refuse service based on religion or race as well, because you believe you should. And then this fuckwit in the government, Kevin Andrews, one of the conservative Christians in the government, straight up said on TV, a Muslim baker should be able to refuse to make a cake for a Jewish person, and a Jewish person should be able to refuse to make a cake for a Muslim person. And I was like, what the fuck?
Well, that is fucking absurd. That's absurd. What kind of... just imagine for a second the horrific society these people would create if there was no pushback against them. I mean, that's a ridiculous notion.
Yeah, bloody Handmaid's Tale. They think that's an aspirational story. They love it. I read The Handmaid's Tale ages ago, and they did make a movie of it like in the 90s or something, which a lot of people don't like, but I thought was okay. And when I watched the TV show, because they did change some stuff in the TV show, and I just thought they made it so plausible. It's just like, well, if you had severe economic problems and then for some reason fertility rates dropped 90%, and so the population was all going to die out, you could get religious extremists to start a war in a fucking heartbeat.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. I'm absolutely certain that you could. Yeah, absolutely. But with the gay marriage thing, did you get the usual arguments of, because I mean I followed it from the outside, but I mean you'll have seen all the papers and all the rest of it. Did you get the usual what happens next? What about if a man wants to marry a horse or something like that? Those kind of absurd arguments.
I shit you not, a person in the government started talking about someone wanting to marry the Harbour Bridge.
And it is a beautiful bridge, to be fair.
That was not some random nutter on the street. That was someone in the government.
Well, that person needs to be immediately removed from office because they're unfit, clearly. That is ridiculous.
Erika Betts, literally descended from Nazis. He's a German migrant, or his parents were post-World War II German migrants. His family tree is literally full of Nazis.
Well, and he's carrying on the tradition of
exactly
politics.
You know,
awful.
That uncle of his who had to go and live in Argentina, you know.
I don't think I'll ever think of the Harbour Bridge in the same way again.
It's an object of love. That's what it is.
It is. Well, it's a beautiful thing. But that is worrying, because, like I say, it's usually religious psychopaths, frankly, who make these kind of arguments. We had one guy going on about a man marrying what if he wanted to marry his own tennis racket, which was a fun one. But that was just a random nutter on like a radio show. He wasn't a member of the fucking government. Jesus.
No, and the other member of the government, the guy I mentioned, Kevin Andrews, who brought up the Muslims and Jews refusing to serve each other, he went on this bizarre tangential rant about, I'm in a cycling club, and then it's always accompanied by pictures of him in spandex. And it's like, and I'm friends with my friends in the cycling club, but that's not a marriage situation. That's a close relationship. That's not marriage. It's like, dude, shut up. I don't want to think about you in Lycra with guys you've got some marriage-like attraction to. What the hell?
Well, that was always fun when we used to see Tony Abbott getting out of the sea or doing some sort of. But you think that was always odd, because prime ministers don't tend to do that here. But I thought that was sort of quite an Australian thing to do.
Yeah. Really. You think we wouldn't, because we lost a prime minister in the sea.
You did, yes.
Yeah, Harold Holt.
Did he just walk out into the sea and then just fucking disappeared?
I tell you what, I've been to the spot. It's out past Geelong where he went, and people have all these conspiracy theories that he went out to a Chinese submarine and whatever. But it's really fucking brutal surf with terrible rips. And you just have to look down on the area where he went swimming, and you go, oh no, he got sucked out to sea and drowned. Like, who the fuck would go swimming there?
Oh, wow. So was it an accident, or was it?
Yeah, it was an accidental drowning. He just went for a swim and drowned.
Oh, wow. Fucking hell. I tell you, it's brutal, man.
I know. Oh, I tell you what, not far from where I live is the Harold Holt Memorial Swimming Pool. So,
oh, that's the greatest piece of trolling I've ever heard. That's amazing.
I know, it's like having a John F. Kennedy shooting range or something. It's like, I used to think it was a joke, and then I drive past it like, holy fuck, that's the Harold Holt Swim Centre. It's real. Oh,
that's amazing. That is amazing. Australia. I'll never change, God. I mean, that's genius.
Yeah, no, it's... look, and there are dozens of things you can point at here, as you say, are way behind the curve. It is common for people from Europe and North America to come here and go, oh, it kind of feels like my country 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And that's a fair call to make a lot of the time, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about that. But America's a big place, isn't it? And you get lots of very different things. I think if you're in California or something, that might be true.
Yeah.
There's certain parts of America that are even behind where Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the struggles of trans people. One of a friend I've made through YouTube who came out to visit, she is actually intersex, and she grew up in the Ozarks, which is like the most freakishly scary conservative part of the US. And she was mixed race. She was part Asian, so that was going to cause her enough trouble in that area. But when she was born, she had both male and female external genitalia, and partially formed penis and testes and vagina. And the doctors said to the parents, what do you want to do? And as was the custom at the time, they decided we're going to do some sort of surgery to be one or the other. And there was the decision that a simpler surgery was sewing up her vagina and just telling her she was a boy a whole life. But it turns out she didn't have testes. She had ovaries internally. So while she didn't have an external penis, she hits puberty and boobs pop out. And it's like, what the fuck is happening? And so the family finally came clean, told her history. She went and had a whole bunch of tests, and the doctors went, oh, yeah, you actually have far more female body parts than male. And because she was a young adult now, they finally kind of went, what do you want to do? And she's going like, okay, this explains why I never felt right as a boy. And yeah, so she actually chose to live as a woman after that. But it's just like, you know, people who pretend it's binary, you're male or you're female.
Yeah, exactly. It's an absurd, ridiculous notion. Yeah, the examples like that are possibly not as horrifically brutal as that, but people who are born, like you say, neither and both or whatever, like some sort of other thing. And why people try and insist that it is only two, when clearly there are so many examples where it clearly isn't. There's no clear dividing line in that respect.
Yeah.
People have such a difficult time accepting that because, again, it doesn't impact them in any way. So I don't know why they can't just accept it and move on with their fucking lives.
Some people can't have their worldview challenged. They don't survive it at all. And I know, Natalie, you're saying the hidden type of intersex. Yeah, because even being intersex is a spectrum. The most obvious are people who are born with both gender characteristics, but it can be down to the chromosomal level. Like people are saying, it's due to your chromosomes. You're either XY or XX. No, there are actually a whole bunch of variations at the chromosomal level. Yeah.
That's my Natalie, as it were. As a friend I know on Facebook, I believe, or somewhere, who does. I think she does YouTube as well. Hello, Natalie. Yeah, she's awesome. I think she's intersex or something like that as well. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for her.
No, Natalie just said she's intersex.
Yeah. Well, I'm briefly skim reading the chat, but I find it difficult to follow the chat and the other person talking in Hangout sometimes. So
I am following you more than the chat. I have to admit, maintaining the conversation, but occasionally I'm picking stuff up. Like Celtic King's come in and said hi, and you've come in while we're talking about the wonderful spectrum of human existence, specifically about intersex people at the moment. But not even human, like that ridiculous line that the people who want to deny all our queer friends their life go, it doesn't exist in nature. Yes, it does. You know, whether it's same-sex sexual activity or actual intersex behavior, like there are species that change gender based on the gender balance in their population.
Yeah, I mean, it is remarkable when you look into it, some of the stuff, because I wasn't aware about any of that before. Like you say, the animals literally changing gender.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing, yeah.
Well, this is the joke about Finding Nemo, that if a clownfish's mate dies and all the offspring die, and there was one left and they were both male, one of them would actually change gender and they would mate, which is not really the Pixar want to make.
Yeah. I can't see Pixar going with that one as a story, to be honest. Try pitching them that, yeah.
Yeah. That's what really would have happened in Finding Nemo.
Yeah, well, oh God, imagine that as a fairy story. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. And Tara should point out, seahorses can change gender, and male seahorses actually carry the young while they're developing.
Yeah, I've always been slightly confused about that, because I thought that was sort of the definition of female when I was a kid. I was like, well, how can he be the man and have a baby? That's ridiculous. But that's nature. That's what fucking happens.
Yeah. I recently got Twitter famous on this topic. There was a story going around about 2 male lions having sex in Kenya, and Kenya is one of those countries where homosexuality is illegal, and the government's actively involved in persecuting the gay community. And they really don't want a simple example like, see what happens in nature occasionally, you know, and because one of their arguments is it's not natural. And so there was this headline story where a member of the Kenyan government was saying the gay lions were copying gay tourists they'd seen. And so, yeah, so I screenshotted the headline with the pictures of the lions fucking and said, personally, I say hats off to the gay tourists who were game to fuck in front of lions. And
yeah, that's yeah.
That was the first thing I thought. Okay, for real, dude, are you saying gay tourists just like to fuck in front of lions? Because that's some hardcore shit right there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can be possibly, even if you're the most rabid homophobe in the world, you've got to have a lot of respect for people prepared to go out in front of lions and fuck.
Yeah.
That's love. I mean, it's fucking brutal love, but that's love.
Yeah, that's thrill-seeking activity right there.
Mm. Reminds me of the great quote about Churchill. On a slightly different idea of danger or whatever, but a Queen's Guardsman was found having sex in a local gay hotspot back obviously when it was illegal back in the 50s or back in the 40s even, and this was going to be a big scandal apparently, but they covered it all up, a lot of it, and he was told about this, and he said it was very cold last night, wasn't it? That was his main concern. That the person might have gotten frostbite having gay sex in public.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, weirdly, this tweet I did saying hats off to the gay couples willing to fuck in front of lions, which I honestly thought was just a throwaway line, no more notable than anything else I've ever done. It sort of picked up and people started sharing it. And it must have hit someone famous who shared it, because suddenly it went, yeah. And over the course of a week, according to Twitter, 10 million people saw it. So,
oh wow, that's fucking big, man.
I know, it's like literally that one tweet would have been seen more than everything else I'd ever tweeted in combination. So I'm like gay lion guy now on Twitter. So.
That's a beautiful thing. That's gay lion guy. I mean, there are worse.
Yeah, no, I embrace it. I embrace it. Yeah. Except it's Twitter, so it's forgotten 5 seconds later. So.
Well, yeah, of course it is. Yeah, because Donald Trump tweeted a fucking something that's going to start a nuclear war or something. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
No, I was just going to say reminded me, because I said earlier about there being no good reasons at all, and even that argument of it's not natural always annoyed me, because I mean, obviously, as we've just discussed, it is perfectly fucking natural. But even if it weren't, so what if two or indeed more gay people want to be involved in that? That's their fucking business. I really don't care. So even if that argument were true, it still wouldn't hold water as to why either gay marriage or indeed just being gay in general is wrong. So what? Again, it doesn't impact you. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't hurt you. So why is that? That's not an argument, guys.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just there are certain people who feel the need to control other people, and just like, you know, if you're not actually hurting someone, then what's the issue? I mean, I don't try to shut down the churches. I don't try to shut down the conservative political organizations. I just disagree with them.
Yeah. Well, that's what annoys me with what I do on my channel with these people. These fucking, I should probably do a slight little plug. Okay.
You should. You should.
Yeah. Yeah. I should have probably done it at the start when people would have still been watching. Yeah. Anyway, but I'm awful at self promotion. Anyway, I do stuff about these anti SJW alt-right fucking pricks. And there's so much of what they say about, you know, liberals or the left or whatever is that we want to control. We're so intent on controlling, control. And then you see these absurd people also say, oh yeah, but gay marriage shouldn't be real, or abortion. You know, you see them making excuses for like abortion bombings and stuff, and you think, well, what the fuck? How can you accuse other people of wanting to control the world or control the actions of other people? It's absolutely, you disgusting hypocrites. Yeah. So frustrating.
And the ridiculous insult they use, like snowflake, you get upset about anything. We're not allowed to say anything. But then, you know, hey, a footballer takes a knee when the national anthem plays and they lose their fucking mind.
Or not, well, not just that. Even worse, of course, was this week America has seen the very same people, like you say, call others snowflakes, have been smashing up coffee machines to protest a coffee company or coffee machine company withdrawing advertising from a pro-paedophile television show, in essence.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I actively encourage them. Those machines are expensive. Go out and waste your money and buy them and then smash them, because that...
Yeah, exactly. The same people who call others snowflakes. I mean, how many products have they now boycotted because of some vague anti-Trump thing? Yeah. Is there a company left they haven't fucking boycotted?
Yeah. Also, like that Prison Planet dickhead. At one point, he posts a picture smoking, saying, "Oh, because this will upset the SJWs because they think smoking's bad." And so I'm in your face, and it's like, yeah, dude, fucking kill yourself. See if I care. You know what would trigger me, man? If you injected fucking crack cocaine into your dick. If you did that, I would be so owned. Like, I'd be upset and triggered, and yeah, just fucking inject crack into your dick and then shove it into a blender. I mean, I would be so upset if you did that.
Well, exactly. I mean, I've always said to Paul Joseph Watson, the thing that would trigger me more than anything was if you fed yourself into a fucking wood chipper. Definitely, I'd be.
And I'd be so upset.
I'd be so offended. I'd be so offended and upset.
I'd be triggered. I would be absolutely triggered. I mean, I've seen variations of this. It's like, you know, when some idiots like throw bacon at a mosque, and the people at the mosque are like, okay, yeah, whatever. And I just saw people on Twitter going, oh, I hope the right wingers never find out donuts are haram. If they left boxes and boxes of donuts at the door of the mosque, I'd be so upset.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on that of the idea of protesting mosques, I think possibly the most British thing that's ever happened in the history of mankind was when a group called the English Defence League, who were horrific right-wing fucking dickheads, back in the day when they had some vague relevance, they protested several mosques because apparently creeping Sharia, whatever the fuck that means, and they protested this mosque, and it was freezing cold because it's Britain. Obviously, it was freezing fucking cold, and so the people inside the mosque, who outnumbered them about 8-1, because lots of people came out to defend the mosque, even people who weren't Muslims, because fuck you, why are you attacking the mosque? They're just people doing their fucking thing. And so they could have, if they wanted to, they could have gotten violent, fucking chopped them up, you know, did the whole thing if they were these jihadi monsters, of course. But no, what they did, they went into and they brought them out a pot of tea and some biscuits to the actual EDL. And you think that's it's the best way of slapping them down and proving them wrong, and B, it's the single most British thing that's ever happened ever. It's brilliant.
That's fantastic. So, speaking of them, there was a couple rallies. Oh my god, that was years ago now. But there were a couple of really epic bits of video caught. One by this guy, and he might have just been drunk. He's a youngish, like shaved head type, and he might have just been drunk, but he really came across like he had an acquired brain injury, either from alcohol abuse or from being hit in the head. And I'm not joking, and I'm not making fun of him. I'm saying it's an objective observation. I had a pretty strong suspicion he had an acquired brain injury because he had a lot of trouble talking. But media are just going, so why are you protesting here? And him trying to form a sentence was pretty spectacular.
Oh, is this the Muslimic ray guns?
Muslimic ray guns. There's an awesome auto-tune remix of him. I got Muslimic ray guns. I got Muslimic ray guns.
Yeah, to me that seemed like substance abuse rather than an accident. But yeah, there was something a bit off with him, wasn't there?
He may have just been like drunk or on substances then, but I got a real vibe he'd done it too much and he actually had an acquired brain injury. Could be wrong. He might have just been out of it on that day.
Yeah,
but
my My theory about that, and I mean, this was years ago, so I'm not entirely sure it's even relevant anymore. But my theory was that he had seen the word regimes written down somewhere and knew it wasn't pronounced quite as it was read, and tried to say regimes, and his best effort was ray guns or something like that.
No, he was trying to say rape gangs.
Okay, right.
That's what he was trying to say. Muslimic, which is not even a word, and rape gangs.
It is now because of him, thankfully, because it's a great word.
And he just mixed up so much terminology and made this. But he was the one who got all the attention. But there was another bloke, sort of middle-aged bloke, very angry, very confused, very paranoid. And he was being interviewed, and one of the media companies, their channel logo was like a circle. It was a zero. It was meant to be like the world. And you know how these right-wingers are scared of the globalists and whatnot? Yes. And the local council had some sort of promo, and I forget what it was, but they also had a circular logo on this thing. So there were posters all over this town with a circular logo. And then someone starts pointing a microphone at this guy that's got a different circular logo. And he loses it. He freaks out and goes, "What's that then? What's that? What's that? You tell me what that symbol is." And the journalist is going, "What? That's my channel's logo. What are you talking about? What's that all over my town?" And it's like, I have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah, they were fun, the EDL, definitely.
Yes. Muslimic ray gun guy got all the attention, but this other guy was really special in his own way.
Well, they all were. That's the thing. You could have done those sorts of interviews with virtually any of them, because they were just essentially. I like to describe them as football hooligans, soccer hooligans for the Americans, mixed with sort of urban rambling, basically, just smashing town centres up. There was no fucking ideology there, other than they hated brown folk. That was about it, really.
Yeah, and they're so confused when you actually ask them, what is it you're protesting? What are you upset about? They're so confused.
Yeah, well, there was a guy in, I think it was in America, who was against one of these, a similar group. I mean, basically, they're fucking pretty much interchangeable, these dickheads. And he went with what was a copy of the Bible, but with a cover that said the Quran. And went reading passages from the Bible to them, but because it said the Quran on the outside, they were outraged, because obviously from any holy book you can get violent, horrifically misogynistic, homophobic bullshit. But then revealed that it was the Bible, and all of a sudden they completely flipped and changed. Oh, well, I wasn't saying that it was bad that was being said. It was just you fucking hypocritical pieces of filth.
Yeah.
I mean, those people are, oh, God almighty. But I mean, there you go. It's silly dogma clouding people's minds.
Exactly. And yeah, they're just determined to be upset by things. Ooh, I note that Celtic King says she should settle down and drink beer. And like, you're not even drinking, Kevin, because it's 9 o'clock in the morning, which is good. You know, I don't want to encourage you to be drinking at 9
exactly, yeah. Yeah, it would be difficult, I think, given the time differences, because the rest of the world insists on having their own time zones, which is very strange.
I know, right?
It would be difficult for us to have like a dual drinky hangout, because there's the time differences. It would have to be sort of midday and midnight type.
Yeah, or we'd both be day drinking at different ends of the day or something. That's
yeah, like it'd be sort of 1 in the afternoon and midnight there, which would be. I mean, that's both of that's fine, but it's just a bit weird on both ends, really. You know,
it is a bit weird.
Whereas in America,
but speaking of which,
it's not so.
You can carry on, Kevin. I'm going to get a drink. All right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not so bad with my American friends, because it's sort of 5 hours to the East Coast, which means you can have sort of a reasonable one. And I'm basically a night owl, because I work nights, so I'm generally sort of, if I do drink, it's you know, later than would be usual, I think, probably. But there you go. And this has been probably the most boring, time-filling piece of conversation you've ever heard in your fucking lives. But there you go. You know. Anyway, yeah, I think I filled the time with adequately boring talk to myself. Really.
Good man. That's what we're gonna do. I think with both of us, with the sorts of videos we do, we're good at monologuing. That's what it all comes down to.
Yeah. Well, I've had before. Bizarrely, I've done hangouts with various absolutely atrocious people, because that's sort of what I do, really. And one of them was the guy called Sargon of Akkad, who you may or may not be aware of.
Oh my God! Yes.
Yeah, he did a similar thing to you. Where halfway through, he had to like go and do something or other, and so I just spent 5 minutes absolutely slagging him off on his own channel to his own fans, which I thought, well, if you're going to just leave halfway through for like, and it was for about 5 minutes, so I just spent the 5 minutes absolutely tearing him down. It was brilliant.
Yeah. Now I kind of ignored him. He did a couple when he was first starting out on YouTube. He did a couple of attack videos on me, and I just said, not really interested, guy. And then when he did a third one, and I'd never even acknowledged that he existed, and he did a third attack video on me. So I did one like, okay, someone's got a crush. Okay, like it's really sweet and it's flattering. I did it with AngsryAussie, and I go like, I don't actually swing that way. Maybe you can talk AngsryAussie into it. But he never made another video of me because I pointed out that he'd been obsessively making videos about me while I completely ignored him. And so he never made another one.
Well, to wrap up, two things we've talked about was a guy I know you've had an interaction with in the past, and who has, again, something of a crush for you, Bearing.
God, yes.
Yes, well, he obviously came out against gay marriage, didn't he? In
hardly surprising.
Yeah, and he's from your neck of the woods, and so I did have to point out to him that they went, was it 84% in favour?
Yes,
which is quite nice. So yeah. Fuck him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Again, and he's another one. See, Ben, I fucking applaud you for putting the effort in to engage these dipshits. I just decided I didn't want anything to do with them, and so I just largely ignore them. I mean, you've got the willpower to actually put up with them. Hats off.
Yeah, I wade through their shit, and it partly comes from I don't know, possibly a sadomasochistic lust to take on the worst of the worst. I don't know. It's just odd, and also because what I do, I overnight security, so I'm sat on my ass for like 10 hours. So I have to fill that time with something. And American sport will only cover so much of that time. So I essentially watch the worst YouTube you can possibly imagine. My recommendations, because you know it gets like the algorithm based on what you've previously watched. Some of the worst like neo-Nazi shit you can imagine is what my recommendations are. And I could clean it out, but that's where I find my next target. That's where I get my material, is from YouTube going, would you want to look at this piece of Holocaust denial, Kev? You know, yeah, thanks, YouTube. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, you've got more fortitude than me. I just went like, no, just fucking go away. I don't want to know about you.
Oh, Mark Latham, yes.
Oh my God, Tara's saying Mark Latham's launched a mob on her. God, he's a piece of shit.
He is, yeah. I came across him recently, within the last few months. I'd vaguely heard of him from back in the day, because obviously he was a leader of the Labour Party, wasn't he? So he's one of those names you vaguely remember was the leader of something in a foreign country, basically. And then I came across him. I did a video on the ICMI, which is the International Conference of Men's Issues, the men's rights scumbags who did their annual event in Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And he was one of the guest speakers, and so I had to look into him. He's a fucking lunatic. I mean, he's
unbalanced. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it seems so odd that you would go from being, even if you are on the right of the Labour Party, to go from that to being where he is now is remarkable. Because I mean, he really is a far right, unstable madman. I don't understand how he can go down, because he really is. He's one of these people who rants about cultural Marxism and stuff. You think he used to be a head of the Labour Party? How did that happen? It's a fascinating character.
Well, we dodged a bullet there. He lost an election against John Howard, but he did this thing. Like, I don't think people knew at the time how unbalanced he was, but it started to become apparent. Like at the start of the campaign, it was like handshakes between contenders, and it was really reminiscent of the crazy shit Donald Trump does with handshakes. Latham just grabbed John Howard's hand and did this, and it was
that kind of
surreal.
The power handshake thing, yeah.
And everyone looked at it and went, "The fuck are you doing? What was that?"
Yeah.
And there was a couple of incidents during the campaign, and people are just going, What did he just say? What was that?" And it was really surreal. And it's like, I don't think at the time any of us realised what a bullet we dodged. Because even, I mean, I'm a supporter of the Labor Party over the Liberal Party, and so it would never have occurred to me to vote against Labor. But we now have evidence that him being Prime Minister would have been a bad thing.
Yeah, compared to John Howard, which is an interesting turn of events, really. But yeah, I think he did dodge a bullet, most certainly. But yeah, it was interesting having done the research for the video I mentioned about the men's rights fucking thing in Australia, to see some of the Australians who spoke at the event and where they fell on the whole gay marriage vote, because it seems so peculiar to me that they would invite supposedly people in favour of men's rights, so many of whom, almost universally it seems, were against gay men having the right to marry their partners. You're not for men's rights then, clearly, you fucking arseholes, you know?
They're very selective. They're for straight white men's rights.
Well, exactly. That's always been my point. They're not a men's rights movement. They're a straight, white, cisgendered, able-bodied men's rights organisation.
Yeah. Oh God, Tari pointing out Latham attacking women, Tracy Spice and Christine Keneally. That's nothing. The way he attacked, what's her name? I've forgotten her first name, but Batty. She came to prominence because her estranged husband murdered their son at a school sports ground by beating him to death with a cricket bat in front of everyone. And she became a real public persona for the fight against violence. And Latham just lashes into her and is going, "Dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you," I think it's Rosie Batty, "why the fuck would you attack her like that? What is wrong with you?" And that was when I realised he had just fallen off the trolley. He was just seriously unhinged, and reality didn't matter to him.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, he's some of the absurd shit coming because he now does a show called The Insiders, I believe. And
The Outsiders, because there's a show on TV here about politics called The Insiders, and because no one will give him a spot on a show, he does stuff on YouTube that he calls The Outsiders.
There we go. I knew it was something like that, and I've watched a few episodes of it, and it's, yeah, I mean, it really is out there conspiracy stuff about how the Australian government are going to try and force him to have to use gendered pronouns that he doesn't like. You think, well, I mean, ultimately, even if that were true, if that's your biggest gripe with the government, I'm sorry, you've got the life of Riley. You're absolutely fine. With this Jordan Peterson prick as well in Canada, he's got a similar thing going on because of his, I mean, again, ultra-conservative Christian lunatic. And you think, again, the bill doesn't say you have to use anything at all. It's just offering this C16, I believe, in Canada. It's just extending non-discrimination laws to include transgender people. So you can't sack them, you can't, you know, deny them employment or benefits or whatever on the same grounds as race and sexuality and, you know, the usual thing, right? So A, he was lying about it, but B, again, even if that's true, just if a person wants to be called he or she, regardless of what you think they look like, just call them that. I don't see the big deal with that at all. It's not. It doesn't really impact you at all. And ultimately, this is the overreaction, right? If you misgender someone accidentally, they'll just get on with their fucking lives. They might point it out to you, and that's fine because you've misgendered them. That's fine. In the same way that if someone called me she, I might go, I mean, you know, I'm not, I'm a man, or whatever, you know. But you wouldn't make a big deal out of it. So why are you making a massive deal out of the fact that someone wants to be called this thing that you think they're not? It doesn't make any sense. It's childish. It's man baby whinging. Stop it.
Yeah, they're so insecure. That's what gets me. The man babies, they're so insecure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never, they go on about being strong and alpha and this and that. And it's like, I have never seen someone as easily threatened and scared as you. Like, what the fuck are you scared of?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, well, for a start off, alpha and beta don't work either in human societies or virtually any actual animal societies. They found that was in captivity, wolves behave that way, but in the wild they don't. Basically, it's a bastardization of wolf societies. Anyway, the zoology nerdery aside, the idea that these people who are so intimidated, like we started the show with your retelling of these sort of jock lads going on about, oh, we think it's the best law, the anti-gay law.
Yeah,
that kind of faux masculinity is ridiculous. The idea that you're so easily offended that gay people can be legal or whatever. If that's what alpha is, then basically we're dead as a species because you've got nothing. If you're that easily undone.
Exactly. Hey, look, I think Joe of Arc's got your weak spot, Kev. Calling you a Villa supporter, is that a severe?
Oh yes, that's my local team. The team I'm a season ticket holder at Birmingham City Football Club. Soccer for the American, and indeed the Australians call it soccer wrongly. Yeah, and yes, a Villa of the local team, to whom I'm not massively fond. But yes, so thank you to Joe. Actually, Joe Abag, a lovely person as well, who I know on YouTube and Twitter, and yeah. But yeah. So that's sport nonsense aside. I presume you're not a sports person, are you?
Not particularly.
Because with the Ashes coming up, I was going to have a little chat, but
I did see someone mention the Ashes, and look, when I grew up, because I grew up in the fucking country, and there was nothing. There were 2 TV stations, and in summer, one of them would play cricket all the time. So I watched a lot of cricket growing up, and the Ashes are a very big thing. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know any of the current players. I don't know. I know all the 70s and 80s and 90s players, but not since then.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's why I wasn't really going to bring it up, because someone, I saw on Twitter someone asked you about it, and someone said, "Are you going to talk about the Ashes?" And you said, "What are those?"
Yeah, I was taking the piss a little bit there. I obviously know what the Ashes are, but I seriously, I don't know any of the players now. I used to know them really well, but yeah, not for ages.
Well, that's the thing. All of my Australian friends, virtually none of them are into sport. So just a shout out to any of the Angry Aussie fans who actually like cricket and want to engage in some banter during the course of the Ashes. Follow me on Twitter at KF Logan, and because I love my Australian friends dearly, but they're not sports people. So I've got so basically I'm sort of on my own on that one.
Yeah,
you want to? Because that's the thing. You go on, sorry.
No, you go on. What's the thing?
I was just going to say it's an odd experience. And I presume it's the same in the reverse. If you watch the Ashes when they're abroad, you're in the middle of the fucking night, so it's like 2-3 in the morning. But in the age of social media, it's not so bad because you can have back and forths with people. But yeah, it's peculiar. But I don't. Yeah, it must have been even weirder back in the day, because you think without social media, you're literally just sat at 2 in the morning watching this thing. by yourself. Look, that must have been very, very hard.
Or it wouldn't even be live. You'd watch it during the day, the next day, and it was very easy to avoid spoilers. You just didn't watch. You know, there was only one news bulletin in there. You just didn't watch it. You just watch it the day after, and it's not spoiled.
Oh, Natalie, you're breaking my heart now. She says, I find cricket more boring to watch than sitting doing literally nothing. I mean, that is... There's no way of spinning that one as a positive review, is there? Really?
No, there's not really. I do, look, this weird bit of trivia I remember from the radio days. There was a very famous broadcast done on Australian radio of a big Ashes tour when Don Bradman was playing, and they were getting ball-by-ball descriptions by telex, and they were faking it then in the studio as if they were calling it live. They were calling it about 10 seconds after each ball, and they had little sound effects thing like a pencil and a wooden block if there was a hit, and you go, you know, Jardine coming in from the south end, oh, it's 3 runs after the thing. And they were basically doing a live radio play but of an Ashes test match. And they filmed it as well. I've seen the film. It's absolutely fascinating. And everyone thought they were listening to a live broadcast, and they were entranced. And how are we getting this live from England? It's magical. And it wasn't live at all. They were getting ball-by-ball telex messages, and they were replaying them with sound effects. It was brilliant.
Oh, that is epic, actually. I like that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, while I'm not a sports person, I'm in Melbourne. Melbourne, the religion here is Australian rules football. And it's all, what team do you go for? And I go, nobody. I don't fucking care. So I'm not into it at all, which is almost sacrilege. But if someone visits during football season, I'll often say, let's go watch a game at the MCG, because it's a real experience to watch the game and be in this crowd at the MCG. It's a great experience. So even though I'm not into the game itself, if someone's visiting and wants to experience it, I'm all for it. I'll take them to a game and just enjoy it for what it is. I'm not like invested in the outcome, but as a spectacle, it's really good.
Yeah, and that's a big ass stadium as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, 100,000 people in there, but
wow, that's wow.
Yeah. So even on a regular weekend, there's like tens of thousands of people in there, and it's a real experience to be in there and everyone going nuts for the game. And it is a visually spectacular game as well.
Yeah, it's a very odd one though. I can't think of another sport that's really like it outside of possibly Gaelic football to an extent, but even that's played on a different shaped pitch. So it's its own thing, really. But yeah,
it's inspired by Gaelic football. Apparently, it was started up as a off-season training thing by the Melbourne Cricket Club. Because they, a lot of them had toured England in the Ashes, and they'd seen Gaelic football, and they just bastardized the rules of Gaelic football, and it mutated and eventually became an official sport, and they came up with official rules for it. And it's developed over, the 100 or so years since then. But yeah, it's definitely a visually spectacular sport.
Yeah. I'm just reading Tara in the chat. Mark Latham claimed a defamation lawsuit brought against him by editor of news and pop culture website Junkie is an attempt to break him financially after he spoke out against anti-white racism. Yeah,
he criticised one of the contributors, saying that, he's just making because I forget exactly what it was, but the guy's just on Twitter going, "Lol, white people are fucked up yet again," and because he's a brown-skinned gentleman. And Latham went on some huge spray on his YouTube channel and said, this is why the terrorists attack, because of this anti-white racism, they can get away with it. And so the thing is just saying, no, you just said I actively advocate for terrorism. Fuck you, buddy. And has launched a defamation suit, which stands a fair to middling chance of winning.
Oh, nice. Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, that's but Australia seems exactly the wrong society for that, because it seems the most. I don't even like using these phrases, but pro-white, if that's a phrase, society in the fucking world, basically.
Oh yeah,
like you literally wiped out an indigenous population, you bastards.
yeah.
You know.
No. It's just
the idea that the Australian white man is put upon is rather ridiculous, really. But there you go.
absolutely, and yeah, I mean, you know, white people have such a free ride here, and they'd all be dead if it wasn't for various waves of migrants over the last, you know, 150, 200 years. Yeah, but the idea that white people are at all set upon here is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, talking about the lawsuit, actually, Nigel Farage, who you may or may not be aware of.
Oh yeah.
Yes, yeah. He's Donald Trump's best friend, of course. He might need to look for work at some point in the near future because he lost a lawsuit and it's looking like about £100,000. I don't know how much that works out in Australian money, but it's a lot of fucking money anyway. Yeah, in a defamation suit against the husband of the recently last year an MP was murdered. In
in the Brexit vote. Yeah.
Yes, and the husband of that of her, I forget what's her bleeding name. So annoying. Someone will tell me. Anyway, her husband teamed up with a group called Hope Not Hate, who are, I mean, they are anti-fascist, but they're not Antifa, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but Nigel Farage, and they put out this thing saying Nigel Farage had been racially sort of stoking fires, which is absolutely fucking true.
Oh yeah.
His the poster he put out about reaching the breaking point, which was literally put out on the same day that his wife was murdered. That, you know, speaks volumes as to the kind of fires he was stoking, and they made that, I think, fairly uncontroversial point. And Farage went on this rant saying that that they were pro-violence and pro-terrorism because of this, and they sued him to fuck. Joe Cox, there you go. Thank you. Yes,
knew someone had come through. Someone always comes through.
Yeah, and I always forget. I forget everyone's name. I mean, I had a really bizarre thing. I'll finish still. Yeah. Anyway, and they sued him, and it's about 100 grand. I had a really bizarre interaction once with a guy who was a black nationalist of all things, which is really odd in America because you think, well, you're a very small percentage of the population, black people in America, so I don't quite see how that. Well, I don't see how nationalism works at all. But anyway, ethno-nationalism, fucking shit. Anyway, and I forgot a black person's name. I forget whose name I forgot now, which is a special kind of forgetting. Jesus. Anyway, Maxine Connors, the MP, the senator or congresswoman, anyway. And so I forgot that name. And he was going crazy at me on Twitter, saying, you purposely forgot a black person's name, blah, blah, blah. And so I had to listen back to the thing. And I then pointed out the timestamps in the Hangout where I'd also forgotten 6 separate white people's names as well, just to settle him down.
I forget everyone's name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm absolutely awful with names. I forget all the time.
So am I. Look, there's a link to the GIF of Mark Latham falling off stage during one of his anti-marriage equality rallies, and it's doubly good. He doesn't just he sits back in a chair which collapses under him, tips him backwards, but he grabs the chairs of the dickheads either side of him and pulls them back with him. Absolutely magic. Was it Tara saying that's why you call him Skit Mark, because of his stage fall? I like it. Nice.
Genius. Oh, and I love that. His neck goes down and he does this sort of frog neck as well. Oh, that's genius.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Miranda Devine.
He drags Miranda Devine and the other dickhead there is equally vile. I forget who the other one is. I'm sure someone knows. It's Lyle Shelton. Lyle Shelton, this evil, lying sack of shit who fronts a sham group that he calls the Australian Christian Lobby. and they do not represent Christians at all. He's a scumbag.
Yeah, I'll have to look into him actually. Yeah, but I came across Miranda Devine in my research for the video, the Australian men's rights. Well, it was an international men's rights thing, but it was obviously in Australia. And she's, yeah, I've looked up some of her past. I don't want to say journalism because I think that would sully the word journalism. But yeah, I mean, she's
just opinion columns.
Yeah, I mean, she's a very unpleasant person.
Oh yeah, she spouts the most ridiculous shit, and it's just like mind-boggling that she can say things so stupid.
Yeah,
it was just, yeah, basically any of her columns. I just feel like doing a search on Miranda Devine is stupid and seeing if someone's done a list of her most stupid comments.
Oh, Joe, you're a legend. Joe of Arc in the chat. He posted that GIF of Latham falling off stage to him 5 times in one day, and Latham blocked him.
Yeah, Latham's got a fairly thin skin.
Yeah, which is odd because, again, as we described earlier, he's one of these people that goes on about snowflakes and things.
No, but he's got a really thin skin.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually not blocked by that many public figures that I know of because I don't go at them that much. But I end up getting with someone who I've picked on a bit in videos, but not so much on Twitter. Malcolm Roberts, who recently got dropped from the Senate, is a One Nation senator, the party that's all about racism. And I don't even think it was about anything severe, like, because among other things, he's a global warming denier. And I think all I did was respond to one of his pieces of idiocy about empirical evidence, produce it, about basically a science-based website, just point by point saying, when a global warming denier says this, tell them this. And it was basically 20 points refuting anything global warming deniers can come up with. And I just responded with that without even calling him a fucking idiot. And he blocked me. And I was like, oh, okay, Jesus, snowflake much.
Yeah. So is the global warming thing, is that a particularly contentious thing in Australian politics, or?
The current government is doing everything they can to make things worse, promote coal mining and burning of coal, and any sort of environmental protection is bad, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's worrying, because I saw a piece on the news recently about the barrier reef being potentially fatally destroyed already. Like, it might be too late to actually reverse that change, and it's dying, and that's awful.
Very long stretches of the reef are bleached to an extent that they can possibly never recover. Bleaching of reefs is a cyclical thing that happens no matter what the circumstances are, and a reef can recover from it. But when it gets to the stage where a couple 100 kilometers of the reef is bleached, it's quite likely it will never recover. So, yeah.
Oh, well, that's all rather depressing.
It really is. Oh, there's a good point. We have a TV show here in Australia on the ABC, the equivalent of the BBC, called Q&A, questions and answers, where there's a panel and there's an audience. Questions are asked, answers are given.
Yeah, I've seen clips from that, yeah, with the red backdrop.
Yeah, yes. And this idiot Malcolm Roberts was on it, on the same panel as Professor Brian Cox once. And Malcolm Roberts was saying he's brain dead shit. And Brian Cox is going, excuse me? And Brian Cox, in that calm, lovely way he speaks, was just going, here's why what you just said was dumb as shit. And he just tore, in the most pleasant, calm way possible, tore Malcolm Roberts to shreds.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to look that up, actually, because that sounds nice. Because his like you say, his calm, friendly, warm demeanour is amazing, and his science shows are. I love Brian Cox.
Yeah, so do I. Oh, Tara, you're saying Q&A is full of queer bashing. I actually can't watch Q&A because they put such fuckwits on their panel for the sake of controversy. I'm just going, if I watch this, I'm going to throw something through my own TV, and I don't want to do that.
Oh, what's that? That's a shame that they've gone down that path, because I mean we've got a thing called Question Time, which seems.
Oops, I think we lost Kevin. He'll hopefully come back. I'll keep talking because I'm good at that.
There we go.
I was fiddling with my. It came out. There you go. Yeah, so no, we have a thing called Question Time here in Britain, which is a similar format, but they actually do it's a sort of mainly a serious thing, and you don't get. They don't tend to go for the more sort of sensational stuff, other than the one time they had Nick Griffin, who was the leader of the British National Party, which is basically a fucking Nazi. But that was that one time. Other than that, they tend to be quite serious, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing that drags Q&A down in my mind is the host, Tony Jones, is so fucking full of himself. He's just so sure he's so important and worthy. Really, really annoys me.
All right. Well, I've only ever seen little clips from it, basically.
Yeah, but you might be able to find one on YouTube of Brian Cox and Malcolm Jones. Like none of it sunk through Malcolm Roberts' head. None of it got through to him. But Brian Cox just like eviscerated him.
Yeah, good.
Actually, that was one of my fanboy moments on Twitter. Brian Cox replied to me once, and I was like, "Oh my god, Brian Cox replied to me!"
Well, I had one of those moments when you followed me on Twitter. I was like, "Oh my god, AngryAussie," because I've been watching your stuff for years, and I was just thought, oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And then I find it really peculiar when people have that about me. Like, I'll follow someone and they go, "Oh my god, Kevin followed me," and I'm like, I'm literally nobody. I'm actually fucking nobody. Why, you know? But that's bless them. I love them dearly.
Yeah. Oh, Joe's asking if I live near Bering. Look, we're in the same city. I don't know exactly where he lives. Someone basically tried to out him to me and said, "Oh, look, he plays in this band." And you can go say, "I've got no fucking interest in him. I don't care."
Yeah, I was about to say, I hope that question's for you, because I don't live anywhere near him.
No.
I mean, literally, without leaving the fucking planet, I couldn't get much further away, and I'm happy with that state of affairs, frankly, because he's a dog turd. He really is.
No, it's really funny that those right wingers, when they're starting their YouTube channels, they do an attack video on me to get attention, and then they get some attention, and then they attack someone bigger, and they forget about me. They go on to attack bigger people.
Yeah, it's nice that you're a stepping stone, though.
I'm a stepping stone for them.
You're like an entry level person to attack. But you are, to be fair, right? I mean, I agree with you on a lot of things. But if you're someone who disagrees with you, the fact that you're shouty and when your whole thing is you're angry, right?
Yeah,
that makes for good fodder. Because the person's shouting.
Yeah. And I have no problem. Like people saying, like, "Oh, such and such did this and re-edited your video in a bad way to make it." I don't care. I mean, I'm just having fun. I'm not going to validate these idiots by being upset at what they do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's, I mean, for me, I think I get the impression that you have a similar attitude, that this is just an outlet. This is just me going off on people who frankly fucking deserve it.
Yeah, no, and it's fun. And because, you know, I like to think I'm reasonably good at verbalizing and being eloquent. So a lot of people who don't feel capable of expressing the frustration they feel, they can get the catharsis from watching me do it. And so it's fun, and people go, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what I want to say."
Yes, exactly. I like to think of myself as something of a voice, not necessarily of the voiceless, but of those who don't want to have to put up with the bullshit. And you do. I mean, you do YouTube, and you have to put up with idiots. You know, like I say, either responding to you or just trying to fuck with you, and sending you horrific, correspondence and things. And some people obviously don't want to put up with that. I don't personally give a shit, but for some people that would be an impact upon them. And so to see their reactions and for them to say, oh, well, that's what I think about this thing, or that's something, thank you for saying that. That's really nice. That makes it very good.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that, one person who appreciates what you do is worth more than 100 people who are pissed off at you. And the good people outnumber the bad people anyway. So I see someone saying, Joe, you're saying Bering lives at Frankston. Okay, that's the same train line as me now. So if I took the train another 20 stops further out than where I live, I guess I'd find Bering. So just another reason to not go to Frankston, quite honestly. It's weird because that's a Bayside suburb, but it's like a real bogan suburb as well, because you get really expensive houses on the waterfront, but then inland from the waterfront is fucking redneck bogan central. Frankston is a stereotype of that sort of thing.
Yeah, that sounds like Bering's territory.
Yeah, well, that sounds like he fit right in Frankston, quite seriously. Hey, Tara, you're saying if you're queer, you'd want to hit Bering with a baseball bat? And I don't want to do it anyway. And not just on behalf of my queer friends, just, I think it would advance humanity if he was like, pushed off a cliff somewhere. But
well, there's no way he's going to take that clip and be really butthurt and angry about it and make a say he's trying to get people to be violent towards me.
It's like, when I joke and said, like, if I had godlike powers, a third of the planet's population would be dead in a week. I'd just be smiting people everywhere. And I've had the bear go, oh, it's violence, the left and violence. It's like, it's a fucking joke. What do you always say about people not being able to take a joke?
Yeah, absolutely. They're ridiculous, these people. They really are.
I just felt compelled. Someone asked, what was the same-sex marriage vote in Frankston like? I want to look it up now.
Do they have those kind of breakdowns this early?
Yeah, the Bureau of Statistics broke it down by electorate. If I could work out what electorate Frankston was in, I could actually find out what percentage voted for and against. I don't know. I don't want to get too distracted. Someone in the chat who's feeling productive, go and see if you can find from the Bureau of Statistics, because I don't even know what seat Frankston is. See if you can find what the vote was in the area that's surrounded by Frankston, and then if it's a very strong yes vote, we can all laugh at how upset Eric would be.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. When I think it was Natalie actually who I was chatting to on Facebook about this, and she told me the statistic about Melbourne going to 84%, because that's brilliant, fantastic. What a great slap in the face for his bigotry.
Yeah,
and he was doing that whole thing about the freedom of speech. I can't vote in good conscience because of freedom of speech. What are you talking about, freedom of speech? It's got nothing to do with freedom of speech, you fool.
Yeah. Oh, Natalie's gone and looked it up. Apparently it's in the seat of Dunkley, and that seat was 72% yes. Yeah.
Good stuff.
That's a good result. But yeah, I mean, there's things like Tony Abbott's seat was 65% or 75% yes, and there's some other complete cockhead is in Western Australia as like a conservative Christian in the Liberal Party, who prior to the vote said, I'll wait and see what my electorate says and vote accordingly. and his electorate voted 65% yes, and he's going, oh, I'm not voting yes, I was lying. And it was just like, fuck you. And this is the big thing of why it was a waste of time. The only reason this public survey would have been of any point at all is if the politicians said they would definitely vote according to the outcome, or at least the outcome based on their electorate. But they don't. All the ones who were opposed to it just went, I'm going to vote against it anyway. And it's just like, well, fuck
or make
you.
it, or actually have a full referendum and make it legally binding. That would be worthwhile.
That would have been one thing, yeah. But to have a non-binding, absolutely meaningless survey was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that struck me as very, very peculiar about the way this was constructed. Was essentially it amounted to nothing more than an opinion poll.
That's what it was. It was an opinion poll.
Yeah, but then I was reading opinion polls from like companies about how people were going to vote in this opinion poll, and you think, you've got opinion polls, then you don't need to do this expensive fucking opinion poll when you've got opinion polls.
Over $100 million to get the same result as all the opinion polls said.
Yeah, amazing. What a waste of money.
And all the queer community were just subject to so much shit for so many months. It was fucking disgusting. And it was just, it was just the worst. At least it's over. I mean, okay, the legislation still isn't through, and the arseholes can still try and screw up the legislation. But, oh my God, the whole thing was so fucked.
Yeah. Did you? I saw your video. Did you say they were planning on doing it before Christmas?
Yes, that they've now committed that there will be a vote on legislation before Christmas. Like, they're going to act really quickly. Because I think also the really interesting thing is, like, about a week prior to the vote coming out, there was one Liberals private members bill that was going to be for marriage equality if it came up, and that's the one they're going with. But there was this other cockhead who came up with this really fucking terrible one, and it just had all this shit about being able to discriminate built into the act. Like, it was fucking terrible. It was awful. And he dropped his when the result came through. He's like, I'm not going to table that thing that I talked about last week. So I think it was such a decisive vote. I think Turnbull sort of dragged him into a back room and said, shut the fuck up. Like, what you're talking about is electoral poison. You presented that would be used at the next election and we would be slaughtered. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there is any positive to come out of what is otherwise a waste of money on a fucking opinion poll, would be that there is now that argument of that even those on the right can say, well, look, just electorally, to not do this now would be harmful, and so they'll actually have to go through with that. But that is amazing that they would act on something that's in essence non-urgent. Like, the economy isn't going to crash tomorrow if this piece of legislation doesn't do it. To act that fast in a parliamentary democracy shows a willing and an urgency, which is refreshing.
Oh, it's also, I think it's just showing, like, if you delay this at all, you're going to pay so much at the next federal election. Like, this is really going to be, they needed to diffuse it, because it's like, if you let this drag on, it's going to kill you at the next election. It needs to be a non-issue. This needs to be something that can't be used against you. And yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, not just that. I mean, I read a piece, I don't know how necessarily true it is, but about the wanting to kill it as an issue as well, because obviously it's sort of divisive within the Liberal Party. And so once it's settled, everyone moves on, and it isn't going to be a dividing issue at election time, internally as well as externally, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, they definitely need to put it to bed. It needs to be gone. It needs to be not an issue, because the public has made it clear where they stand on the issue. So if someone tries to make a thing of it. It's just like, well, you know what? 60 to 70% of the population is going to tell you to go fuck yourself if you do this. So,
and those are the kind of numbers that politicians will listen to. Definitely.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's the big thing. At the last gasp, Tony Abbott said he's trying to clutch at straws. He said, "Oh, a 40% no vote would be a moral victory," and it's just like he's been so fucking quiet since the result came out.
Well, that's not true. How is that a victory in any sense, moral or otherwise? And secondly, you still didn't get that, you twat.
I know. So it's really funny. He actually put a benchmark in and said, this level of loss I will call a win. And he didn't get it. It's like, fuck you.
That's a defeat upon a defeat.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah. And it's just like, in your face, you idiot.
Yeah.
But no, Turnbull, I mean, the Conservatives are still going to get absolutely creamed at the next election. But Turnbull was aware this is a great big stick that can be used to beat us, and we need that to not be a thing.
That's fair enough. Well, this is one of these occasions where politicians being self-serving pricks will mean good things happen in a short space of time, hopefully. So,
yeah. My favourite was the dickhead who proposed a really fucking awful bill that literally had a whole bunch of discrimination that would have been built into law, and he dropped it.
Yeah, so basically the honest Conservative position.
Yeah, and he said, "Oh no, we should have all this prejudice enshrined in law," and the scale of the vote has just said, "Dude, you'll get fucking creamed at the next election if you go in with that." And it's not like a 60% vote in a federal election would be 90% of the seats in the parliament. It's like people feel, 60-40 is not that big, and I go, no, it's pretty fucking big, quite honestly.
Yeah. Well, this is the point I always make to people. As much as you might feel disenfranchised by politics, and that's understandable to an extent, if you don't vote, politicians won't listen to you. Exactly. If you vote for the things that matter to you, politicians can't ignore you because you've actually got a voice there. And so when 60% or 62% of the population say X, politicians have to basically do X to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, you look at historical voting patterns, and 30% of people were going to vote against this no matter what. I've seen some interesting things. There was what someone pointed out, it was almost like the benchmark, and this is American politics, which is a bit more extreme and a bit more partisan, but they said, what's the percentage of people who'd vote on party lines no matter what? And the other person is like, I think the figure was like 27 or 28%, but I just rounded to 30%, because there was one congressional race where the Republican guy had actually been convicted of quite a bad crime. Like, I think it was like rape or something. He'd been convicted of quite a bad crime, but that happened so close to the election, he was still on the ticket. So like, he legally wasn't able to fill the role because of the conviction. And he still got like 27% of the vote. So it's like, that's the percentage of people who, in a two-party system, will vote along party lines no matter what. Like, your candidate is the most awful, reprehensible, evil person imaginable, but you still can't bring yourself to vote for the other guy. It's like, it's about 27%.
Yeah, well, Roy Moore in Alabama, the guy who's, I mean, he's a child rapist. There's no getting away from that. That's what he is.
There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, and he's still polling competitively in that state.
Yeah, I mean,
what the fuck?
It does look like he's going to lose, but he's going to get like 40% of the vote.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's not. It's not. If his numbers had crashed through the floor to like 5%, you'd go, okay, fair enough. But he's. I mean, it's not an absolutely done deal, even though he's
Yeah.
literally raped children.
Yeah, and
I,
not once or twice. He has a pattern of behaviour over
yeah,
decades of hassling schoolgirls.
yeah, and not just that, but his wife has sent out agents, it seems, to try and find dirt on these people in order to try and discredit them. Not to discredit them on the basis that the accusations are untrue, just to try and muddy the waters.
Yeah.
I mean, what the? How is anyone voting for that man? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but he's not even going to be convicted prior to the election, but he's going to get like 40% of the
Yeah,
vote when he's obviously a child molester. He is obviously a child molester.
yeah. I mean, remarkable. So yeah, so imagine that, Australia, you can feel slightly better about yourself when
Yeah,
40% of Alabamians, or whatever the fuck they're called, will vote for a child molester. The fact that 30% of Australians decided that gay marriage wasn't a good idea, that's a drop in the ocean by comparison, really.
yeah. Things could be worse.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
Sebastian, you've just come in. It's definitely the tail end of this. It's getting close to 10 p.m. my time, which is normally when I wrap things up. We've been cruising along for nigh on 2 hours, having a jolly good time.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, yeah, actually, yeah, it has. It's flown by, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been really good. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to get this username right. Divinum Infernum saying that Alabama's generally fucked. Well, I mean, Alabama's the joke state in America, right? If you want to make fun of somewhere else, you say, like, I call Queensland the Alabama of Australia. It's like, if you want to make fun of a place, you say, is that the Alabama of this place? And so,
I thought that
yeah.
was I thought that was Tasmania was seen as a
Tasmania
that
is
place.
quieter than Queensland. Queensland
Oh, okay.
is very loudly redneck. I was like,
Yeah.
but that's the great line. One of the many animated series I love, Archer. In one of the early seasons, there was this weird thing with this German girl he was supposed to be bodyguarding. He kept trying to come onto him, and she's 16, and even Archer won't hit on a 16-year-old. And he's going, "Oh no, definitely not." And she says to him, like, why not? In Germany, the age of consent is 14. And Archer goes, "What? What is Germany? The Alabama of Europe?"
Actually, that's relatively common in lots of places. In Spain, I believe the same is
There's a
true. It's
lot of
14.
places that have 14 as
Yeah,
the age of consent. Yes.
yeah. Which is that's a bit young for me, to be honest. Like, in Britain, it's 16, and I think that makes a certain amount of sense. But 14's a
14's a
little,
bit creepy. 14's a bit
yeah,
fucking creepy.
yeah.
Oh, Davidium, you're saying Roy Moore's lawyer. Is that the dude with the really bad haircut with the
Ye-
fringe brushed down to here with the straight cut?
Yeah. I saw someone asking, well, what the fuck is he hiding underneath that?
Yeah.
He must be
I mean,
happy.
I just literally that really bad haircut and down here, it's like, who in their right mind goes, I'm going on TV to defend a child molester. Best have a haircut that makes me look really fucking creepy.
Yeah,
That's weird.
it is. Yeah, that is an odd one. But like you say, hopefully he loses now because that's
It looks, I mean,
what a
like, the
model.
choice is literally between a lawyer who prosecuted the Klan for murdering children and a child molester. That's the choice. The
Well, this is
Democrat is a lawyer who prosecuted the Klan for firebombing a church and killing kids who were in it, and the other guy's a child molester.
but this is Alabama, so you think, well, I'm not sure being anti the Klan is necessarily a universal accepted positive, which is rather worrying.
I
But there
know.
you go.
That's the weird part about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is
now we're talking about
Tasmania Alaska?
if you turn Australia upside down, same vibe. I think hot places make people crazy. Because in the US, the further south you go, the hotter it gets, and it seems the crazier people get. In Australia, the further north you get, the hotter it gets, and the crazier people get. And yeah, honestly, Tasmania's Alaska, because once you get down to Tasmania, the next thing you hit is Antarctica. There's like Tasmania, open ocean, Antarctica. There is nothing between Tasmania and Antarctica. So yeah, it is Alaska. Yes.
Yeah, actually, talking about the heat and making people crazy. Actually, Michael Moore had a great chapter in one of his books. Was it Stupid White Men or Dude, Where's My Country? Anyway, and he was basically the concept of the South will rise again. He said that was only ever made possible because of air conditioning. He said it was too hot for them to rise again until air conditioning, and now these George W. Bush Southern Baptist fools are back in power. Which there might be some element of truth to that. Who knows?
There could be. It could be. But yes, I think heat tends to make people a bit crazy. So yeah, Australia's north is more like America's south. This is a true thing.
Yeah. Well, I can't speak to that because I thought Tasmania was quite right wing as a place.
Well, it is a bit conservative, and because it's a little island, the rest of the mainland always has a little joke about everyone in Tasmania being inbred because there's a limited gene pool there. But no, the reference to Tasmania being Alaska is not bad. That is reasonably accurate.
Yeah, because Alaska's quite right wing. Alaska, obviously, the state that produced Sarah Palin. So yeah. So yeah, so producing a certain amount of inbreeding and right-wing lunacy. So
yeah, so extreme cold and isolation and extreme heat seems to have an adverse effect on humans. That's the pattern.
Yeah, which is why here in Britain we're just moderate, because it never gets too warm, it never gets too cold, but it's always raining. So
I swear to God, we always laugh like when you have a warm-ish summer, like mid to high 20s, and the news is like heat wave in England, and we're sitting here going, "What now?" It's like
that's winter temperatures, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here, particularly in late summer, we tend to get a whole week of like 40 plus Celsius, which is just
that's not
ugly.
Human beings are not meant to exist in those temperatures. That's ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely not. Last summer, there were parts, and these are slightly remote areas, but people were living there, where in 1 month, more than half the month was over 45 Celsius. And it was just like, how are you not dead? How are you not all dead?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but talking about cricket earlier, when they literally were watching the Ashes, and they'll say, "Oh, the temperature outside is such and such, 40 plus," and you think it's 3 in the afternoon, it's 40 plus degrees. You're out, not in the shade. You're in the fucking sun.
Yep.
That's not healthy. This is not a healthy situation for people to be in. But I mean, they do it. It's remarkable. Yeah. But there you go. Yeah, Britain does do that. Do you ever what's the coldest temperatures get?
Oh, well, see, the landscape here is quite diverse. Tasmania is very cold. It's further south. But we have mountains, where there's snow and stuff. I mean, where I went to college was west of Sydney, just across the Great Dividing Range, the mountains west of Sydney. And the record when I was there was like minus 15 Celsius when I was there.
That is fucking
so if you're in the mountains, it gets very cold. But in the sort of mainland cities like Melbourne, if it hits freezing, if it hits 0 Celsius, people freak out. People go, "Oh my God, it hit 0. Oh my God." So Australians are a bit soft with cold temperatures.
Yeah, you do. That's incredible then, because you do that's quite a range of temperatures there.
Well, we ever
like in Britain, like you say, we get up to about 30 at most, and down to about minus. Well, again, outside of, like you said, the very north of Scotland gets very cold during the winter. But on the mainland, it's mainly -5, 10 at worst.
Mm.
So it's not a great range actually.
Joanna raises a big point. They make us go to school. I grew up in the country in Western New South Wales where it was fucking always over 40 Celsius in summer. And we this population grew and they didn't improve the schools. So we'd be in these portable buildings called demountables that are like fucking shipping containers. And they didn't have air conditioning and they had windows and they'd get really hot. Like we'd be sitting there in summer and sweat is literally dripping onto your book from your forehead because it's so hot. And we would always say, isn't there a rule? Like if it hits 40, aren't we allowed to go home? And the teachers would go, no, you made that up. That's not a real rule. I was like, oh my God.
That's awful.
Yeah.
How can learning take place in those conditions?
Oh no, your brain shuts down. There's no two ways about it. And if you're not listening to the teacher, you're just sitting there going, I'm dying. I am absolutely dying here.
Yeah.
That's the Aussie Brick Chick. There's a thing that happens in Australian schools, demountables. These temporary classrooms that for some reason stay around for decades in schools. And it's like they're made out of shipping containers. They're freaking terrible.
Oh, wow. Well, I've learned something there because that just sounds... Australia's not a poor place. Build the fucking classrooms. What the fuck?
I don't know. It's just like if your population grew suddenly, they can't come up with a budget to extend the school. See, look, now everyone's going, oh, yeah, we had demountables. Tara thinks they're not allowed anymore. I don't know. It's just like, I just have these nightmare memories of demountables with no air conditioning, and they're supposed to be temporary, but they stay around for decades.
But you say you grew up in like a sort of backwoods
in the country, Western New South Wales, like literally about 900 kilometres west of Sydney. Past where I lived, it's a town called Dubbo. You went further west, there was only really small towns until you hit the fucking desert. And there was nothing further west than us. You go another couple thousand kilometres, you hit Broken Hill and the desert. And there was nothing of much significance further west than us.
Yeah, I mean, people forget because obviously it's not a massive population in total, but it's a fucking huge place, Australia.
Yeah, it's just spread out. Like the population density is so sparse, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you've got obviously vastly more land, as it were, although most of it's desert. But you've got a vastly smaller population than Britain, which is ridiculous.
Like the entire country is the size of some cities in terms of population.
Yeah. How many people roughly?
I don't know, it's like 25 million now. Who's been keeping up with what the population is?
25 million.
Yeah.
We're pushing 70.
Yeah. Yeah, and seriously, your country is about the size of the state I live in, Victoria, which is one of the smallest states. And
our population density is farcical, frankly. Although it doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't feel that cramped for the most part. And I do live in a big city, but it doesn't feel particularly.
I don't think it does. It's not like Hong Kong or anything. Or
no.
And I because my partner, she's English, and I've gone over a couple of times to visit like her family and stuff. I agree with you. England doesn't feel cramped. Not even London feels cramped, really.
Yeah. Well, London's got, I think actually a lot of the bigger, older places have the advantage of they were sort of laid out to be slightly more spacious because of the older buildings. So it just feels more roomy than like a lot of American places seem, because it's obviously the block system. You look down and it looks like a Lego set that's been built in this place.
Yeah, big American cities are a bit oppressive. San Francisco, although I haven't been to San Francisco for a while, San Francisco feels much more like an Australian city. People in Melbourne, like I was there, I've been probably twice in the last 10 years, 3 times in the last 20. Definitely the first time I went, I think, oh, this feels like Melbourne. Like Los Angeles is a weird alien place, but San Francisco felt like Melbourne. So, and I think Australians generally tend to feel like that about San Francisco. It's more like an Australian city than other American cities are.
24.13 million in 2016. So that's
there you go. I like that, Joanna. You like Minneapolis? Every city except Seattle can suck it. That's city pride. That's what I like to see. Oh, but you're a Firefly. You're talking about Japanese people not being able to understand Australia's sparse population. There's a train trip you can do. Oh, there's two that go across the middle. There's the Indian Pacific that goes from Sydney to Perth, which means 90% of it is the fucking desert. And there's the Garn, which goes between Adelaide and Darwin, so it goes up the middle. And both of those, the middle of the trip, the middle 90% of the trip is nothing. It's flat, featureless, nothing. And apparently, Japanese tourists who do that will take an enormous number of time-stamped photos of the nothing just to show everyone back home. This train traveled for 3 days and there was nothing outside for 3 days.
That's that's what? Oh God! I mean, that's it. It's just a massive desert with like a green fringe around the edge.
Yeah, yeah. It's like if either of them, basically 90% of the trip is nothing. So you could just stay in the dining cart and get drunk, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that seems like that would be quite a weird sort of existential existence of 3 days of nothing.
Because yeah, it's like Sydney to Perth is 4,000 kilometres. It's a long way.
I'd just fly. Why is there a train line? No one needs to go by the train that kind of distance.
Yeah, and someone just decided to build it.
Yeah, it makes sense in somewhere like America where you've got different places along the way. So like from New York to LA or whatever. But if I mean, 3 days of nothing, that's awful.
There is fuck all in the middle. Like if you go like Sydney, as you're heading west, you go through the country towns and stuff like where I grew up, and like, but you hit where I am, which is about 900 kilometers west of Sydney, and that's it. There's almost nothing. You go another 900 kilometers, you'll hit Broken Hill, and then it's fucking nothing for a couple thousand kilometers. It's ridiculous.
Was yours the kind of place where you actually get, kangaroos and stuff?
Oh yeah, Jesus. Not so much in town, but as soon as you go outside of town where I grew up, on the highways, you had to be so careful of kangaroos. Oh, look, we lost Kevin. I'll give him a minute. Oh, you're back. No. There you go. Back. Okay, I was going to say, give you a minute to come back, because then I'm going to say goodnight, because it's like, as we've passed 10 p.m. now. So I'm going to go to bed.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? Oh, we seem to be breaking up a little bit.
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So we'll say good night now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm glad this works, because I wasn't even 100% sure if this would work. This is the first time I tried to do that. So thanks for suggesting it, Kevin. This has been fun.
Yeah, thanks, man. Is it okay if I put a mirror of this on my channel?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely.
Oh, good, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, so this has been fun. So it's definitely something I'll try doing again sometime as well. Tara, you're right, going to bed's for losers. I'm just having a shit time at work at the moment. And if I don't get some sleep, I'm really not going to function, as opposed to the way I normally barely function. So good night, all. Thank you so much for joining us. Had a really good time. And yeah, so keep abreast of what Kevin does, keep abreast of what I do, and I'll hopefully see you again for another live stream. And thanks for joining us, everyone. Bye now.